My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back to Me Cool People. Eli here, and today I have this awesome gal that I have been introduced to. We met at Connect Fest when I was speaking back in August, something like that, and she and I ended up hitting it off. We've had several conversations since then. She's doing some awesome stuff, and I decided it's like, okay, we got to bring her out so everybody can see. So Zoe Martin. Her superpower is making people look and feel great about themselves through beautiful portraits and headshots. She's also the co-host of the Heart of North Texas podcast, and she loves to build genuine connections with her clients to ensure every moment she captures is highlighted their unique image. So Zoe, thanks for coming and hanging out today.
Thanks, Eli. I'm going to have to remember my bio. I'm actually the host now. I was the co-host.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what the funny thing is? I almost had the host of, and I was like, no, I need to put co-host because that's always going to be a thing. And see, I should have just went with my gut reaction.
That's okay.
So tell us a little bit more. Like I gave you just a kind of a basic intro. Tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and how do you help people?
Ooh, who I am and how do I help people? Currently, my business is photo and video, and I definitely like to help people feel good about themselves. And so when we meet, I will talk to people and draw out questions and find out more about them. And I do the same thing, relationship building with my clients. And so we start out with phone conversations, get to know them, see if we're a good fit. Because if we're not a good fit, I have other photographers and videographers in my sphere of influence. And so I'm happy to connect them with someone who is a better fit. From there, I actually do in-home wardrobe consultation, which is something that a lot of photographers just let their client maybe see a Pinterest board and say, here, these are some images and, kind of build your own wardrobe. But I will go to the home of my clients and help them choose what to wear. And then complimentary hair and makeup is something that I offer my clients. So that's definitely a self-confidence booster.
Very cool.
Okay. While we're doing the photo, while we're doing hair and makeup, then I give them the opportunity to have a conversation with me and the hair and makeup artist. And we're, conversing around as a team and building the relationship, continuing it from there. So they already have confidence in their hair and makeup, their wardrobe, and then the photo shoot, where I also show behind the scenes to them, which is really encouraging because they can see I'm not blowing smoke when I position them and guide them into poses. They look great and they can see it on the back of the camera.
That is awesome. And I like the way you said that because it is, I mean, most of us, we are in a relationship type business. I mean, even myself is that way, but so much of that, especially when you're dealing with helping somebody with the confidence of something, which photography and video is one of, those are things that are very difficult for people. Like even for me, I don't really like to be on camera. The videos that I do, I do 1 minute videos that I record myself. I do them right here on my computer. And it took, 4 years for me to finally get the guts to do that. So it is something that is really difficult for people to get over. And it sounds like you're helping them feel much more comfortable with it. But I love that you're helping them with the wardrobe side as well, because I think a lot of times, like I know when I've gotten my pictures taken professionally, they're like, show up here and we'll do it. And it's like whatever clothes I happen to have on my back or what they're going to go with. So I like the fact that you're helping them make it a better experience as a whole in order to get that much better at the results.
One of the reasons I do that is because I was photographed by a world-renowned photographer who is amazing, but I was very uncomfortable in the photos. And I to this day, I do not like to be photographed and I don't like to be in front of a camera. And so knowing how that feels myself, that's why I try and make my clients, like I want to envelop them and help them to feel comfortable, because I know what it feels like to be on the other side when you're uncomfortable and then your forehead furrows and you just
Yeah.
don't look good because you feel uncomfortable, and that translates in camera.
Right. Well, and I love, it's so funny that you said that as far as like, you don't even like being in front of camera. So most photographers I know are the same way. I've known so many photographers like, yeah, I carry the camera. I'm not in the shots. And so, yeah. So let's actually go through some kind of tactical things with people when they're looking at getting, especially like in the business world, because most of the people listening to this are going to be entrepreneurs to some degree.
Mhm.
Um, if they're looking at getting headshots, what are some of the things that they need to think about from a wardrobe standpoint, from a positioning standpoint, some of the basic things that they should kind of think about if they don't have the opportunity to work with you, where you're just going to take care of it all for them?
Sure. If they're talking about wardrobe, I think one of the best things that you could do is to find clothes that actually fit. And I don't mean to wait until a few minutes or a day or two before your headshot, because if something doesn't fit, you're out. So make sure that the clothes that you have fit, try them on, and then maybe even pair them. It's difficult sometimes to think in the realm of just what looks good on you. You need to think about solid colors, and then does it look good on you? Another thing to consider is your brand, especially if you're a personal brand. Think about the colors that are in your brand. And if you have those colors, I highly encourage you to wear those, even if it's, let's say your colors are purple and pink and you don't own a lot of purple and pink. So maybe a necklace, a scarf, a vest, something that would bring in that purple or pink. Or you could ask your headshot photographer to use those colors as the backdrop or the background, or to shoot you on a solid backdrop that you can pull the photos off of and then incorporate into your brand. There was wardrobe. And when you're talking to your photographer, you want to know that they're experienced with headshots. You would be surprised if the photographer is a natural light photographer and you're wanting images in studio, you may or may not get what you're actually looking for. So you want to look at the portfolio of the photographer's work to make sure that that is actually the images that you're looking for. There's a lot of genres and moods when you're looking at a photographer's work. There's what we call light and airy, which is usually a white backdrop, or the room is solid white, and a lot of times the sky will be technically blown out, so there's no color in the sky. So if that's the look that you're going for, you want to look at the photographer's work and see if that is what is good for you. But
Right.
if you want traditional headshots, you've got the backdrops and in studio lighting and things, and that's mostly what I offer.
Right. Okay, cool. Now you brought up something I think is really important. And I know, I've looked at photographers' work. I've worked with photographers in the past. Most people don't think to look at their portfolio and say, okay, is this the right person that does what I'm looking for? They
Mhm.
just think, oh, these pictures are beautiful, they could do what I want. And that's not always going to be the case. I've seen that where I've had photographers that their work is amazing, but their style is different. Like it's not what I'm actually looking for. And for me, a great example is I've seen photographers that do a lot of outdoor type of stuff. So they'll do more family portraits and things like that, that are in sceneries and things like that. But when it comes to, like, for me, I'm looking for pictures that I can mask out so I can use them in marketing materials and stuff. The gal that did our family pictures, that was not the right person for that. Great photographer, phenomenal photographer, but she's not the right person for that because that wasn't where her forte was. And I love that you brought that up, because I think that's something that people need to stop and think about and just say, okay, just because this person is a great photographer, you need to make sure they're right for what you are looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, with all of that said, you brought up colors, and that's one of the things, me, you always see
Mhm.
me in purple. Like
Yes.
even here, I got the purple background. I'm wearing a black shirt, but I have the purple background for it. But in person, I mean, you've seen me, and I know, and I can vouch, by the way, for everybody listening, I can vouch for the quality of her pictures, even on a phone, because she's taken pictures on her cell phone and sent them to me, and my pictures looked awesome.
Oh,
So
thanks.
yeah. So I can only imagine what it'd look like if you were actually using your real camera. Um, one of the things that I think that a lot of times people don't think about when that is where you said the great thing is if you just have to think it through ahead of time and have the conversation with the photographer of, are we going to use a branded background and just more generic colors, or are we going to have colors in the outfit? I love that you brought up accessories. It's like with me, I might be wearing a lighter purple, which is not really, it's still purple, but it's, for me, royal purple is my main color, but
Yeah.
I'll wear a lighter purple shirt, but then I'll have a handkerchief in my jacket that's the deep purple and things like that. And so I love that you brought that up, because those are the kind of attention to detail pieces that I think are important. And again, you want to make sure you got the right photographer that actually can think about those things. But for those of us that are not photographers, we need to be aware, because not everybody has those skills like you do.
Yeah, and one of the things that you can do if your photographer's on board with it is to show them, here's a couple of outfits that I'm considering. What do you think? Weigh in. Or one of the other things that I do for my clients is to offer, let's say they're going to go shopping and they're in, they've got their attire lined out there in the dressing room. If they want to take photos of them in the outfits, that's actually a really good idea, because again, having good fitting clothes versus baggy clothes, it doesn't translate well on camera. If you're wearing baggy clothes, it actually adds weight, and that's definitely not what anyone is going for. It doesn't matter what size you are, you don't want to look bigger than you actually are. And so that's why I encourage, if you're going to wear a jacket, that you wear a shirt that fits well, tuck it in. As a matter of fact, if you're one of my clients and you come in with baggy clothing, I have little clips and I will pin the back of the clothing, whether that's, the arm is baggy or the waist is baggy. Even if your pants are baggy, I'm going to clip them in the back so that a way it doesn't show up. It looks like it fits better than it actually does, because I don't want to add weight to anybody.
Right. No, I love that. That's a cool little trick too, because for anybody who's doing just their own photography, even just, by themselves taking some pictures, I'd never thought about just putting clips on the back of your clothes to kind of help it fit better.
Yeah,
That's a good,
clothespins.
yeah, that's actually a really, really good tip. It's so funny because, I know you and I think you and I've talked about this. So I've been doing a lot of working out over the last, 18 months maybe, and have actually lost quite a bit of weight. And it was kind of cool because I actually had a picture that you had sent me from me speaking that I was like, holy crap, I did not realize how different I looked compared to like even just a year ago. And so I don't think I told you that part. I think we maybe talked about the weight loss part in general, but I don't think I told you one of the pictures that you sent to me that you had taken while I was speaking. I looked at it and I was like, holy crap, that's a totally different person. So it's important for that kind of stuff, because it makes you look good. It makes you look more professional, but then also it makes you feel good, which
Right.
that's kind of the point. There's nothing worse than having that picture going, oh my God, I hate this thing. This is so ugly. But you have those ones that look the opposite. And that's why this kind of stuff is so important. So let's shift gears just a little bit. Yeah. Cause you said you do photography, but you're also doing videography too. How is that different from when somebody's looking at how to prepare from a standpoint of what's going to look good?
For sure. When you're in front of the camera for video, I think you have to consider whether you're going to be standing, which most people are not. You're usually sitting. And so you want to take into consideration the way things fit when you sit. It actually makes a difference. So sometimes, like a lower waisted bottom could sit differently it could look different when you're sitting. And so you want to look at yourself in the mirror and see what that looks like when you're sitting down. With the video, sometimes I will do behind the scenes videos. And so you're actually walking around. And again, that's where you want to be wearing clothes that fit well. I wanted to say form-fitting clothes, which essentially that's what it is. If they fit well, they're form-fitting. And so you want to just be mindful of that. There's nothing wrong with wearing jackets and layering. Actually, I encourage that because it adds a little bit of definition and interest. So even here with this video, you see that I've got this velvet chair, but then I also have, I'm opposite. I also have the throw blanket, and then I've got the pillow behind me. And so that's for interest here in this video realm. But then for my attire, even I have on the tank and then the jacket over it. So I'm layering to give visual interest. So that's some of the things you could do. Normally, if you've got something in your background, I don't know why I should have. I have a logo thing that I could have put right here, similar to how Eli's got his Meet Cool People tagline there above his head. If you've got things that are logoed, you can have those in the background, and that adds more layers of interest. Is that what you were looking for, Eli?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, when you're talking about the layers, it also adds depth. A lot of
Yes.
times people don't really think about the depth side of it and those little details that make a difference. I don't know if you knew this. I came from a graphic design background originally. So from that standpoint, it's like I look at stuff like what you're talking about here and I'm like, okay, that makes more sense now because I know it's better, but I hadn't really stopped and thought about why. But it's because those little details, they add depth to the entire, this entire scene, I guess is a good way. So how did you get started doing all this stuff?
Ooh, I had a camera in my hand. Like as far back as I can remember, I was the kid that was on activities, taking pictures of my friends. I was the one with the camera when we were at family activities. And then when my kids were born, I wanted Anne Geddes style photos,
Okay.
but Anne Geddes was just one person. And I don't know if you know this, Anne Geddes was like the original newborn maternity photographer. There were maternity and newborn photography wasn't even a thing before Anne Geddes. And other photographers told her people aren't going to pay for that. Well, she opened the floodgates, right?
Right.
So
Very much so.
I wanted to be able to have really cool photos of my kids. And so I started educating myself. And while I did those like nailed it shots in the beginning with my own kids, I eventually learned. I did a lot of online education. I did community college. And then I got hired by a photography studio in Midland. I worked there for 5 years before I moved to Longview and got a studio of my own. And here I am in Dallas now for the last 2 years.
Nice. That's very cool. So what was it that brought you to Dallas?
My husband's job. So he works for Pepsi and he'd gotten a promotion, but it was during the pandemic. And so we were able to stay where we were in Longview. And then when they opened the office back up, we had to move closer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice. But we love having you here. Yeah. You and I've had some fun conversations. You do a ton of networking here in the DFW area, which is great because you're always out doing stuff. I was actually, if I wasn't back to back on stuff, like I had something, Jeffrey Casanova, which I know you know him. He just posted about the Colin mid-market professionals party that was going on. And I was like, oh, I would have liked to gone to that.
Yes.
There's obviously so much stuff you can't even get to it all. But one of the things that I think is really cool with what you're doing, I want to shift it up a little bit. You have this is your primary business, but you also have the Heart of North Texas podcast. So let's talk a little bit about that a little. What is it and how did that get started?
Absolutely. That's kind of my baby. I did not start it on my own. Last year in July, Mark Friedman with Frito Nation Productions, and I had a conversation because I wanted to start this organization. It's called Caring for Collin County. The idea is that we get 100 people together to collectively contribute $100 each. So we have $10,000 to donate to a nonprofit 4 times a year. And I said, Frito, if I could get some support, at that time I'd only been here for a year. If I could get supporters to make this a thing, that would be amazing because I want to give back. And he was a coach for the Special Olympics, the Allen delegation there. And so he also had a heart for giving back. And I said, what if I started a podcast? I don't know anything about it. And he said, actually, I pitched that idea to a sponsor 5 months prior, and they haven't gotten back with me, but I definitely want to start that. And I was kind of disappointed because here it's going to be his thing and he knows what he's doing. And I said, well, if you get it started, if there's anything I can do to help, I would love to. And he said, can you co-host? I had never done a podcast before. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you totally can. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, so we don't have sponsorship. Do you think we should start in January? He said, no, September. It's like, okay, this is July. So we started recording in August. We aired in September. And then he passed away unexpectedly October 1st.
Oh, wow.
And that was just a really hard time. Last year was a rough year for me. because the weekend that I had talked to Frito, was the weekend he passed away. That weekend, I had asked him if we could record virtually because my sister had just gotten out of ICU and I wanted to go visit her. And that morning I woke up, that was the weekend that he passed away. And so I cried the entire way to Longview. Anyway, I lost Frito, and unfortunately, any episodes that didn't air after the Tuesday that he passed didn't air. We'll never have access to them because they're in the can, they're locked. And so I couldn't record anymore, and I didn't have access to them, and I didn't have a podcast production ability. But a few months ago, I was talking to somebody about the podcast and explaining how I, would love to continue that if I could. And he connected me with Buddy Broyles with Studio VLS, Visual Learning Solutions. And Buddy said that he would like to produce it if I would be willing to host it again. So I said, let's meet. We had only had a phone conversation. And so we met and we talked more about what it would look like. And so he took on the production abilities and we kept the name. Actually, Frito was the one who came up with the name, the Heart of North Texas. And then I told him I wanted to relaunch on the anniversary of Frito's passing in his honor. And so we got to do that October 1st of this year. We relaunched, and it's been great that it's solely featuring nonprofits and people who are doing good in the community. So if you are a nonprofit, you're listening, or you're on a board, send your nonprofit suggestions to me, because we have about 200 people on my spreadsheet right now, but we record 3 episodes 2 times a month in Plano. They're live recordings, and when we have sponsorship, we are able to actually record on video and put that out as shorts and different things on YouTube and across everything podcast, the podcast world.
That is awesome. Love it. Very cool. Have you connected with Rachel Garnett yet?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's
specializing in nonprofits. So I was like, okay, yeah, you two definitely need to have a conversation.
Yes.
Good. Awesome. Very cool. So the podcast, it's nice that you have a studio that you can actually record it in, which is awesome. For me, I actually prefer mine doing it virtual for the very simple fact that then I don't have to go somewhere. Yeah. It's really great. I can just do it right here. But it is definitely a different experience. I've done a few in-person podcast type of things, and it's definitely a different experience. It's a lot of fun to be able to do those. So that's very cool. So when you're talking about you're working with nonprofits for this, what are you doing you're just interviewing so they can kind of tell their story of where they get started, or how does it work?
We talk about not only how they got started, but how they're involved, what they're doing, how volunteers can get involved. I really like to know if they have somebody who's a good volunteer, what would that avatar look like, so that people can resonate and, oh, that's me kind of thing. Because that was the goal of the podcast, was to get, obviously caring for Collin County, but also we want people to know where they can give back, what aligns with their giving. Because I think a lot of people want to give back. They just don't know necessarily, a nonprofit, whether it's children or pets or homeless, whether that's seniors or sports, figure out what it is. And then maybe it could be based on the location or their business. And that's another thing, is that we encourage people to not just give individually, but collectively. So if you wanted to get a group of friends together, or you wanted your business to, go and do something together, find it through the Heart of North Texas.
Nice. Very cool. Awesome. That is awesome. Another one, I'm assuming you've probably connected with Bravis by now, haven't
Yes.
you? Okay, good. Because he's very deep in the nonprofit community. Very cool. I love it. And then of course, I'm distracted by my own show for the fact it's like, okay, has she connected with this person yet? What about that person? It's like, which that I want to try to do that anyway. That's kind of the purpose of the show as well, is so people can meet other cool people, even if it's, somebody else that Bravis has been on this show. Rachel will be. We just haven't booked the time yet. I've already got her. She's going to be a guest on the show. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So the next question I have for you do have your legacy project, and it's something else I want to kind of switch gears into and give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that, because I know something is very dear to your heart. You and I have talked about it before, and I know I would do a horrible job of explaining what it is, so I want you to be able to explain it. But talk a little bit about your legacy project and what it is that you're doing with that.
And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share the story, because it's really my sister's story. And the legacy projects were born out of the grief that I have in losing her. She was 40 years old last year, and she had had a breast cancer diagnosis, stage 4, at the age of 35. So we had her for 5 years, and Christmas Eve last year, I lost her. And it was a huge loss for the world, because she was just such a bright soul. She was a teacher, and she would schedule her appointments around her student schedule. But through that 5-year journey, there were a few things that happened, and it culminated into what is now my purpose, which is the legacy projects. So she had one child. She wanted to record some letters. And so the couple of weeks before she passed away, I was with her for 2 whole weeks in hospice care. And she woke up one day and she said, "Zoe, go get the letters." And I thought, oh, I'm so glad that she remembered, because I'd already forgotten. One of our sisters had created stationery envelopes and letters for Christina to write Caitlin. And so I got the letters, I brought them to the bedside, I opened them up, and she hadn't written a single one. And my heart broke, because at that point, she was so weak, she couldn't even hold her cup. And there was no way she'd be able to write a letter. And so I took my phone out and I said, "Here's what we're going to do, sweetheart. I'm just going to record you, and you say what you want to say, and we'll just worry about getting pen to paper later." So I recorded 2 videos before she fell asleep. And then the third video, she was very groggy, but I recorded it anyway. And then the night of the celebration of life, I went to my niece and I said, "I've got something for you." And I explained the letters, and I started to show the video, and the dog was at the foot of the bed. And as soon as Tiki heard Christina's voice, she whipped her head around. And Caitlin and I thought, oh, I mean, we both broke down. We were already upset about the videos, but then Tiki hearing Christina's voice and recognizing that immediately, where is she? And so that was one of the things that hit me. But then also, there are 4 of us sisters. Christina was 10 years younger than me, and then Cecilia and Stephanie are 11 and 12 years younger. All 4 of us were going to be together. And so we hadn't had professional portraits done in over 30 years. And I thought, since we're all going to be together, this is our last opportunity to get this photo. And I contacted a photographer who was going to meet us at the house. But when Stephanie and I went and saw Christina, she had oxygen. Her hair was gone. She had to sit up, and she wouldn't want to have been remembered that way. And so I canceled the photographer, and I'll never get that opportunity to have that portrait of the sisters alone together. And so because of our loss and the regret that I have in not being able to capture those photos and to have those memories recorded for Caitlin, I now have the goal of helping other people create their legacy through photo and video. And that can be anything from photo restoration to having that photo printed, mounted, and hung on your wall. I will actually do that for you. It's a service where I make sure that you've got it hanging on your wall before I leave. If you wanted to record family history through video, I have the capability to do that. I can do that in your home. We can do that in my studio. If you wanted to do it at your lake house, there's so many opportunities there. If you wanted to write a story, I'm going to be working with publishers and media companies, graphic designers, illustrators, and people that'll help you create that into an actual book. If you wanted to record milestones, whether that's celebrations or events, then that's, again, you have the opportunity for photo and or video. It's just this huge realm of opportunities for people. We could transcribe it. And if you wanted to do a video and just have, the transcription available, there's countless opportunities to create a legacy for you, your family, your organization, or your business. And that's what legacy projects are.
Nice. Very cool. And it's definitely a needed service. I know a lot of times I've talked to people that are like, I wish I had this stuff. And so it's great that you're putting that together as well. It's very cool. Very cool.
There's one more thing I forgot to mention, Eli.
What?
Because Christina passed away from breast cancer, 10% of the legacy projects is going to be donated back to the Bridge Breast Network in her honor.
Nice. Very cool. Awesome. So anybody who wants to get involved with that, number one, become a client, if you get your legacy put out there, get your own legacy stuff put out there, because your kids, they may not care right what you're listening, or they're not listening to what you're saying today, but tomorrow they probably will. So it's a good idea to put that stuff together.
For sure.
Very cool. So we just covered a whole bunch of stuff, like 30 minutes of covering all kinds of stuff, everything from your business as a photographer, as a videographer, some cool tips, tricks, all that kind of fun stuff, to the podcast, what's going on there, you working with nonprofits on that stuff, and then the legacy project. I don't think I've got a guess that we've actually covered that many different pieces in one shot, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
It went way fast.
It went way fast. I know. It's not the first time I've heard that. I heard a lot of people are like, wow, we went to that long, that fast. Oh, wow. And I just go back to the fact that it's like, well, it's much better than the opposite, where you're just sitting there kicking and screaming, going, God, are we there yet? So we had a good conversation. So any last words you want to give to people as we start to kind of land the plane here?
I think it's very important for people to think of legacy projects as not an end of life, or my family is dealing with a hospice situation. I think you need to think about it now, because you're not promised tomorrow. Right. The reality is that moments become memories, and you just need to think about it now, not tomorrow.
Definitely would agree with that one. Awesome. All right. So we got two final questions for you. Same two questions I ask every guest here. Last question is going to be the easy one, which is, how do people get a hold of you? Because that's going to be the important part. But before that, this is the Meet Cool People show. And I always like to ask every guest, what does meeting cool people mean to you?
Concentric circles. I think it's important that we don't think in the realm of how can I help you or how can you help me, but how can our sphere help each other. It's incredible when I meet people, and then the people that they know that they're able to connect me to, and vice versa. I just met someone last night at MMP Collin, a real estate agent. She does both commercial and residential. And I asked her, how could I help? And she is like, well, I need plumbers and electricians. And today she texted me and asked if I knew a commercial architect. So definitely I have this fear of people, and I said sphere, but it's kind of sounded like fear. I have this sphere of people in my circles, and I'm going to be connecting her with several. So it pays to know people. And when you meet cool people, you have mutual connections and mutual, what is the word I'm looking for? Wow. People that are cool connect with other cool people. And that was one of the things she also asked me. She's like, have you worked with them directly? And some of them, yes, and some of them not. However, when we're connected and we're traveling in good circles, those people are good people, and you don't have to worry about making a bad connection for someone.
I love it. Perfect. And it really is true, because it's like a lot of the times, a lot of the people that we've been connected to, and how you and I even got connected, is, it's great people. It's like you and I met because of Cheryl Powers, who's been a guest on this show.
Yes.
And I met her because of Jeffrey Casanova, who has also been a guest on this show, because I like to bring in cool people, and, and you're in good company for being on the show. But the whole thing about it is that when you start getting the right people that you start connecting with and building those connections, those relationships with them, it's great, because that's like your army. They're there for you. They're there to help you out. They're there to back you up when you need them. And they're there when you find somebody else that needs their help as well. And it's a cool vetting process.
Yep.
Awesome.
Agreed.
All right. So how can people get a hold of you? What's the easiest way?
My website is thezoemartin.com, and you can find me on social, Zoe Martin and the Zoe Martin.
Awesome. Very
personal
cool.
and business.
Yep. And I can vouch for the fact she's very active on both Facebook and LinkedIn, because we've had multiple conversations on both, which is great, because like, we're friends, we know each other, and we still go back to social media to how we connect to each other. This has been awesome. Zoe, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. It has been a pleasure to get you to come just share your story, share everything that's going on. And you're a busy gal. You're doing lots of fun stuff.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me.
It's always a pleasure. All right. Thank you so much. Everybody, get out there. Have an amazing, amazing week. If there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out and let me know. Take care.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.